Listening to White Noise with your host, Drip, 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 Drip.
Welcome back to White Noise, Year 2, Episode 16, I believe. 16 or 17, I forgot at the moment.
I don't remember.
But I am your host, Davis, aka Drip. As always, I'm joined by producer Cal, the founder of Black Wrestling.
What's poppin'?
This week, we'll be talking Mercedes Moné, which we teased the last week. But before we start that conversation I've been wanting to have for a while, we'll be talking about some news of the week and some other stuff that dropped.
Right.
As well. We got a GosWatch update.
I saw that photo. I didn't know what was going on. Well, I think I know what's going on, but I don't.
But first, I want to add something that I kind of briefly talked to you this week, and that's John Mulaney's new stand-up special. Did you actually get to watch it, or
I've not watched it?
Okay,
I've known about the situation ever since
2020.
Yeah, it's been because the funny thing. Shouts out to Frazier. Shouts out to my homie Frazier Tharp. He's not the biggest stand-up comedy guy. Like, he's into a lot of things, but he doesn't watch. He watches a lot more stand-up than I give him credit for. But he's not the biggest like stand-up fan. But he's like a John Mulaney head. So
I'm kind of in that boat, and I'll explain why. But
my wife loves John Mulaney as well.
I think kind of everyone likes John Mulaney, and it's not hard to see why.
That's part of the problem, right?
You think? Oh,
well, no. What I'm saying is like
you might be onto something.
No, well, I mean, think about it. So, for those that don't know, John Mulaney he's one of those. I mean, I don't want to say white guys. Just one of those like comedian celebrity guys who was like beloved by everybody. He's a very smart individual. There's one joke he told talking about Trump where he compared him to a horse inside of a hospital.
Fucking brilliant.
One of the funny, and it was such a like brilliant is a great. It was such an amazing way to break down the fucking that was Donald Trump, especially
now,
like
imagine there's a horse in a hospital.
His delivery is great. I mean, he was on SNL for years.
Well, that's the thing, he wasn't, and that's why I'm fascinated by him as a person as well as
how long was he there?
Well, because like he's on SNL, but he's behind the scenes, which is crazy. To think
he was a writer.
This guy who's one of the biggest stand-ups in the world and has this amazing delivery and on stage, performance. Like the way he'll move around sometimes in certain mannerisms. But like
he's a great stand-up.
They didn't think he was like a cast member material, but he was a writer.
Some people's talents are better. And I mean, the funny thing is like now when he comes back and hosts, he does those like rejected sketches, and they end up being some of the most like viral videos that pop off every time he hosts SNL. There's another like musical segment that ends up being the funniest thing people saw, and it started by them doing a sketch that they wouldn't do in the past or whatever.
And Fraser asked him about that in the first article, like what's it like doing these sketches that are hard to pull off, like these ode to Broadways in New York,
right?
New York of old. And he's like, it's we couldn't do a whole show of that because it's just too much to do and licensing and all that. But like he creates Stefan with Bill Hader, which is my favorite SNL original character.
Classic. That's like one of the best. One of my favorite modern SNL bits was Stefan during the Weekend Update with the fucking, because that's being around rave culture and stuff. Facts. Your arm, like if you're one, that would have been your whole sleeve. Yeah, like I've been around those kids before. Like he nailed that person. There's so many of those kids, skeevy ass kids, walking around New York waiting to get your money so they can go get their fix or whatever, and then turn up at the party and give you a bottle. Anyway, no facts.
Just like. I mean, if you ever want to like have a good laugh, just watch like 20 minutes of Stefan, because it's like.
Well, the key was that Hader would be right. Like Bill Hader wouldn't know what was in the script at certain points.
John Mulaney wrote all the cue cards, and Bill Hader would go on there with no like preparation in terms of like what he would write.
Right.
Like he would. So I guess like all the voice choices were Bill Hader's, because again he can do almost any kind of impression, and he's probably my favorite SNL character of that era. So you can see why. Hopefully, we'll talk about Barry in the next couple weeks once I'm fully caught up.
Same.
But he'll be like, it's like Phil Jackson. It's like Phil Jackson, Scotty, and then he'll go back to being like, New York's hottest club is spicy. It's brilliant. And then he's in love with Seth Meyers. Like, he hates that Seth Meyers has a girlfriend and a fiance and all. And like Bill Hader once told on Bill Simmons' podcast, he's like, my daughter found out about Stefan, and she's like, some kids showed me something where you're this guy and you just dress and talk. Where he's like, yeah, it's this character I play, Stefan. And she's like, and that dude is your boyfriend, meaning Seth Meyers. And he's like, yeah, and we got married as well. She's like, all right, that's pretty cool, I guess. Like seeing, he's like, my kids aren't into my work at all. But John Mulaney is responsible for this, for that, all like these weird references to things like you said, like club culture, or like he's like, look for the old person that looks like Harvey Fierstein mixed with this. Like, it's just the way he'll cross things together. If you watch John Mulaney's stand-up specials, New in Town or Kid Gorgeous, like the way he tells a whole story of his parents and Bill Clinton, and then he'll cut in like The Fugitive about like the first time I met Bill Clinton, right, was at this ballroom in Chicago, and that's where they filmed the third act of The Fugitive, and he cuts in and out of the story and the scene from The Fugitive. I was like, you switched the samples.
It's good. It's really good stand up. I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to be like, yo, he's. I mean, I guess arguably, if you're talking about the yin and yang of like great stand up currently, he may be up there with Chappelle. I don't know. I don't know what Mulaney is like freestyling. I don't know how much. Yeah, I feel like he's very much by the script that he wrote when he's on stage.
Based off this, because if I watched his monologue when he returned to SNL for his 5th time to join the Five Timers Club, the monologue is parts of the first 30 minutes of the stand-up special. Gotcha. But he had already gone back on the circuit to work this material, which is what Frasier's story was this week about, in terms of like the follow-up. Like once I wrote that story, this man immediately checks into rehab. Which is like, I mean, I knew this was happening too, because I think we had a brief conversation. I'm like, your man just did a story about John Mulaney and now he's in rehab, but like, which kind of made sense because they announced he was joining Seth Meyers' late night show, and he did this weird character where he dressed in this trench coat and glasses, and if you watch it just seemed weird. And if anyone who knows John Mulaney in his prior stand-ups, he had talked about being like a raging alcoholic as a youth, and that kind of carried on. He had trouble with drug addiction in the past, so he unfortunately had relapsed, and that's what this special is about, is him having relapsed during COVID. And the way they went around it, of like, he's like, my friends from New York and my friends from LA, he's like, the funniest, most famous people in the world that you can think of are the reason I went to rehab. And he's like, and they were saying like they all agreed like not to do bits, like they're going to be completely serious, not be funny. And he's like, how selfish of them, what assholes to like be so serious about sending me to rehab. He's like, and if you think I didn't take aim at the people who are in LA about like, well, if you care about me so much, why didn't you fly out to see me? Like, in terms of like, it's brilliant. And like, it's also devastating too, because you hear someone talk about their struggles, and he's like, it's like, I couldn't buy cocaine with my credit card because it would be maxed with or Venmo, because my credit card was maxed out. So I had to go and get cash. And he tells a story about buying a Rolex just to pawn it off to buy coke. And it's just like crazy. It's like, and how you do cocaine is you go into the bathroom and you use the baby tray and you do your lines off of that. And he's like, flash forward, I now have a son. I have to go change him. I pull down the baby thing, and it's just like,
it's a reminder.
Yeah, he's like, life isn't it crazy? It's also kind of beautiful as well.
He's a smart person.
But I don't watch stand-up too much, but it reminded me of another stand-up special that was one of my favorite things of last year, which was Gerard Carmichael's Nathaniel.
Yeah.
And which was
really good.
Should You Laugh at This? Which is someone telling their story about their struggles and them being honest when they are being funny. Telling it is a thing. Like, and like, what should be considered comedy and what should be considered, I think, honesty or storytelling. Like,
I would say if the comedian's up there, they're saying something funny, I think they want you to laugh, you know. And if they're like for Nathaniel specifically, like I will laugh anytime Gerard Carmichael makes a joke. He's one of the funniest individuals to me, and even when he's being serious, like you can tell, and I feel like John Mulaney would be the same type of person, like to kind of ground themselves, they have to make a joke. You know, well, I don't say have to, but like they need to, you know, release that tension. You know, sitting just in that space of, you know, what the fuck did I put my life into? Make my life. I think that what you said earlier was, you know, really insightful about you know, being visited by your people and them trying to be serious when all you guys do is joke around. That happened in an episode of Cosby Show. The guy had cancer, and Theo was trying to be. Well, Theo was like very serious because he didn't know how to act around his homie. His homie's like, "Man, stop being a dickhead. Just like, you know, be real with me. That's what I want you to do."
I think it's hard, and that's what I mean. Like, is it okay to watch people be real with themselves, which is what those specials kind of are. Like, again, they're telling jokes and they're making you laugh and they're laughing themselves, but you like right. Daniel's about him coming out and reckoning with his father's infidelity, and Baby J's about drug addiction, having to fight through that and thinking you're okay when you know you're not okay the whole time. Like, he's like, I have to get a haircut before this intervention. He's like, and you know, and where do I go to get a haircut? 30 Rockefeller Plaza. I go to SNL to get a haircut because I'm like, they have barbers, and it's 7:00 at night. He's like, I show up and they're like, John, you're not hosting this week. He's like, I need a haircut. And they're like, he's like, yeah, I need a haircut. And he's like, credit to them. They're probably one of those things like, it'd be quicker to cut the hair than to ask more questions.
To figure
like,
it all out. Yeah.
So he's like, I show up, great haircut. I'm cocaine skinny, and all my friends are there at this intervention, and they look like slobs because COVID's 4 months in. And it's like, oh shit, I laugh at because it's brilliant to be like,
again, he wouldn't have put it in there. If it's funny, I'm laughing.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend.
But I'm also a darker individual though, not melanin or anything. Just like I'm a different type person. I'm just saying, like.
No, that's the thing. Like dark comedy, like real dark comedy, like the stuff that you shouldn't laugh at or like isn't meant to be a joke, but it comes off that way, which is different from unintentional comedy of like a movie that's so bad is funny on accident.
Right.
So stuff like this is like stuff he does want you to laugh at, where he's like, I'm in rehab and I'm mad that no one knows who I am. Like,
right. Yeah, exactly.
No, he's like, that pissed me off a little bit, if I'm being honest. He's like, hi. He's like, I go to the meetings. I'm like, hi, I'm John M. And they just look at me like,
who the fuck is this?
Like, why are you waiting for an applause or something?
Right.
Like, that pisses me off. And it's like, you know, Gerard Carmichael tells the story of his dad like cheating within their town, but using an alias of like he said his name was Jerry Rice. And this was like an aunt of his close friend.
They would see him all the time.
That looks like Joe Carmichael. And she's like, Coach Joe. He said his name was Jerry Rice. He's like,
Jerry Rice.
The audacity of my dad to say his name was, of all people, Jerry Rice when cheating. And so like just cheating out in the open was like, so it's that thing in stand-up. Like I said, I never really seek it out on my own because I mean,
I've seen so much of it.
It's not like how you can watch like if you like basketball, you can watch basketball highlights of guys from overseas, or if you like fighting, you can watch again bare knuckle fighting if you're into stuff like that. But like if you like comedies and movies, like do I just look up any type of stand-up or sketch comedy or anything like that? It's kind of tough.
It's like I think it's like when you start getting into pro wrestling, like there's that one, I like the way he does the flips. I'll watch more of his shit. And when you start watching them, hopefully you see other people you like. But I would definitely like if there's someone you find funny, I would try and find out if there are like specials or things that have, or sites that have them and other comedians on them. Like the Laugh Factory's YouTube page has a gajillion different comics on there. At some point, the YouTube algorithm will align you with somebody else who may be up your alley.
Yeah, and the thing with Mulaney is that again, like he wrote on SNL when he broke out on his own, and like he had the failed sitcom and everything else. Like he's now more known as a voice actor, which is what the GQ article was kind of asking him. Like, what's it like being a voice actor when you're this big stand-up? He's like, I actually like it because it's a different type of acting in a way. Mm-hmm. But but the part about you being close to the situation somewhat by knowing the person who wrote the article, like, did you ever have anything like that, where like the magnitude of your work coming back in your face? Because the way because like the second like his article details, like I go see Mulaney working out this what goes on to be this special, and he reads excerpts of the GQ article, which when you read the whole thing doesn't sound as bad as he portrays it in the stand-up special.
Right.
There are certain parts, and those are the excerpts he reads where he's like these bits of randomness that seem kind of like what the fuckish is what he reads on the stage.
Right.
But if you had read that article at the time, you wouldn't have thought anything different, because like Fraser says, like I think he's just being comedian, like he's
that's
trolling,
just him,
yeah, like, and I would expect that from anyone in that situation. But were you ever in something where you yourself wrote something that had it like referenced elsewhere as a source of like what the fuck is? Well, I guess the closest thing would be you said you edited the Tony Storm Thunder Rosa piece, and that kind of blew up.
Yeah, but
later, but
it never, like, nobody approached me or anything like that. Or I was like being in a spot where you're watching somebody that you did a piece on doing something and have them like reading things that you read or wrote in the piece. Like I've never had anything like that happen. The closest, when I first started writing,
no, I guess we have. It was the podcast of Kaz and Mr. 52. I guess it was that.
Yeah, but even then, like we were long blocked. He didn't mention us by name. Like,
but that's the work that you've done.
Yeah, no, you're
and using that work is like
you're
say
right.
Something about their work.
But it's such a it's like we didn't interact.
True.
You know what I mean? We were blocked before a conversation could even happen. I used to write. I don't say I wrote bad about WWE, but I don't even remember what piece. I was really critical about the WWE Network when it first came out, when I was at Complex, and I remember when Ultimate Warrior passed away, and at some point I was writing about how the network treated the content that it had on the service, like. Kobe Bryant passes away. ESPN, they played that one game like that night, the night after. I'm not saying WWE didn't do anything at the time, but the immediacy for you being the one place that people know this person from, and there's half like I was really confused about the direction of the networks, and I wrote some pieces about it, and I remember like when outside of that stuff, people who are running those channels were trying to have conversations with WWE. They would ask, well, what about this? What about that? At least that's what I heard at the time. I don't know. I don't know what I had said or if there was something that pissed them off, but that may be the closest I've had to it as a writer. Number 52 that's a really good point, but it would have been nice to get like some interaction out of that.
Yeah, because I guess that's the thing I was also curious about. Was just like, imagine you write this article, because I was shocked. Like the stand-up special is about to end. There's 12 minutes left. He's like, I did this interview in GQ magazine. I'm like, I know that interview. Like I'm like, my friend's friend wrote that article.
Oh
like,
yeah, I remember the group chats. Yeah,
but I do remember like he had wrote the he had talked about on it, because I follow Fraser, because it's that thing like, I'll follow who my friends are friends with once you get on like social media and stuff. And he said like I would like months later when Laney got out of rehab and it's announced that he's dating Olivia Munn of all things, which is crazier than him going to rehab.
That's why everybody started hating him.
This man divorces his wife and gets Olivia Munn pregnant, and like,
it wasn't just that he was with Olivia, he got her pregnant.
Yeah, which was just like. And like, good for him. Like, I ain't mad at you. Like,
I don't remember how long he and his wife were. But and the other thing was like him and his wife. There was a thing about them not wanting kids or something like that, and now he's popping up with a baby with Olivia Munn.
He had said he didn't want to have kids. I think it was like the report. Yeah, it was one of those crazy things.
He probably slipped up. Maybe he didn't want any kids, but he doesn't believe in abortion.
Damn, Cal, you talking about dark comedy, right?
I'm just saying, because there's some people who are like, "Yo, it's a situation that happened."
That's where you use protection. But again, if you're,
if
you're with Olivia Munn,
there's some people who say, "Hey, if I'm not with my wife anymore, and Olivia Munn is down, Who knows?
And I don't mean this like in a shape, but if you know Olivia Munn and Chris Pine's text, maybe, and I think that's why that man doesn't carry a modern phone, is he's worried about his text messages leaking, because when those got aired out, I was like, holy shit. Like,
shouts to Olivia Munn. But either way, when people realized that that's what was going on, that anybody who was like really big fans of him, there were a lot of people, I should say, that were really big fans of John Mulaney. He's like the wholesome guy, just like the dude from the Try Guys.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was just like, because, and he says it himself in his stand-up, like, you might see me and think I might be gay, which I admit I might look like it in the way I talk. He's like, it's like God had sent me out there and all the parts weren't finished to make me gay. He tells this whole great story. He's like,
yeah,
he's like, you might look at me and think like he's not a raging alcoholic, but he told this kind of dark story. Like, well, in high school, I'm not on the football team or anything like that, but I can't outdrink everyone. So that became like my thing, which is like sad to hear. Again, that's like the comedians are actually the saddest people in the world.
Yeah, the sad clown.
But yeah, like he has this wholesome guy image of, oh, he's a skinny guy who gets on stage with nice hair and like makes you laugh. It's like maybe he isn't when you're around Olivia Munn. He talks about being friends with Pete Davidson and clarifies like he and I have never done drugs together.
I'm shocked.
So
he was friend with Pete after all that, was kind of, I guess that would make sense.
No, it was before, because he tells the stand up. He says in the stand up special, he's like, people might think Pete Davidson is the reason I relapsed, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Like
Pete didn't do coke. Because Pete smokes weed.
Not with him, maybe. Like, who knows? I mean, do you know Pete Davidson has his own Curb Your Enthusiasm coming out?
Yeah, Bubkiss.
But when that show was announced, it's like Joe Pesci's playing his grandfather. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like a traditional my grandpa and me show. But it's like, I only found out this last week it's about him playing him, and I'm like, yeah, this guy can't do shit else but be him. And I'm like, and he can't, and him, he's not even entertaining as him. It's like
I watched the movie. I'm like, I'm good on Pete Davidson's 8 Mile. The only reason I'm going to check out Bubkiss is because Joe Pesci's in it, because it looks like the movie, and the movie looks like his life.
I would never want that to be the name of the episode, but Pete Davidson's 8 Mile is so good that I hate that man. I hate that man so much. I can't allow it. No.
Davidson's 8.
And I don't even hate him from the standpoint of like he gets these women, because I'm like, one, that's also more so PR than anything else. Your publicist is telling you who's a single guy that you should date. Like now, but it's like, no, you're going to get a lot of mainstream attention if you're the woman who's with Pete Davidson right now. I think that's why like women. I mean, Warren Beatty was like the handsome guy of his time, but still, it's like you want to be one of the women that Warren Beatty has slept with. That's a good look,
right?
Like, it's like right now, Glenn Powell and my celebrity crush Sydney Sweeney, they're having
Sydney Sweeney.
Have you seen what's been going on with them in terms? But I think that's a PR stunt more than anything.
No, yeah, they're selling that movie, whatever the movie's called. They're selling it,
and it's like her, like his girlfriend has like hinted that they're no longer together, and Sydney Sweeney has a whole fiance, and like maybe they might be on the outs. But
she's got a fiance.
Yeah.
How?
But when that story was, when all these rumors have been going on, I'm like, listen, these are two of Hollywood's hottest, and not in both tenses, like stock rising and like good looking people. They want to be superstars. Like Glenn Powell wants to be Brad Pitt. And Sydney Sweeney has talked about like, I don't make enough off Euphoria, so that's why she's taking all these roles and shows.
Is this movie ass though?
I'm gonna be hyped for this movie because Will Gluck's directing it, and he did 3 of my favorite movies. So.
What's it called again?
Anyone But You.
Okay,
but
we'll see.
I've thought this whole time this has been a PR stunt for them. Maybe they did hook up.
No, I can see it. I can see.
But I'm also like, it's not gonna be. They're not gonna be in the next Brangelina where they last 8 years together.
It doesn't look natural like Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. Was it Chris Pine?
But she's married Gal Gadot. You must be thinking of someone else.
No,
you were thinking that Gal Gadot. There were rumors of them being together.
You never saw it? Do I have the video?
Because it seemed like Patty Jenkins wanted Chris Pine.
Gal Gadot, Chris Pine. Flirting. Hold up. It's the second thing that came up. Is it this one? Is it? Let's see. Is this gonna? I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for putting this up on the YouTube. Maybe I'll cut this part out. Cal, cut this part out from going up on the YouTube. Yeah, biting her lip. Yeah, it's this clip. Here we go. There's a clip of her looking at Chris Pine. during an interview. I'm gonna grab the full one, and when you're like, oh, like, sure, she could just be like randomly biting her lip while looking at him while he's talking, but like it also kind of looks like she's down. Wait, hold up. I'm sorry.
It's like the reverse of the no, you can leave this one because this is good because it's like the reverse of the you see Zendaya with Tom Holland.
Someone was looking at you like that?
You're right, yeah.
Come on.
Nah, I get it because
Black TV addict. Shouts to whoever uploaded this bit. Anyway,
but the image of the image that's related to John Mulaney because that's the other kind of news of the week.
This one.
With. So the shirtless guy writing a script in front of an iMac, listening to the AirPods, is Nick Pizzolatto.
Oh God,
Nick Pizzolatto, the auteur of True Detective.
I'm not ready for this.
Has been announced as the writer for the Blade movie.
I don't get
Marvel's Blade movie, I should say, starring Mahershala Ali, who was the star of True Detective Season 3. I did not watch True Detective Season 3 because I hated Season 2 of True Detective so much.
It was better than Season 2. It was
That's
was
what
more,
I've heard.
It was truer to, no pun intended, it was truer to Season 1's format.
Truer Detective?
It's truer detective. That's
should they have done that like Die Hard and Die Harder? Like
maybe. I mean, because the second one was hot garbage.
Truest detective.
Truest detective. And like, see, we're getting back to it. It's not even a 3. We're just truer over. I don't know, but yeah, I don't understand what he would have to do. Is he a vampire guy? Like, why him?
All right, this is right. This is where Marvel's like, we gotta throw the talent on this project. Meaning Blade, because it's flawed from the start. Mahershala Ali called them and said, I want to be Blade, and Kevin Feige said, okay, whatever you say, pal. Sure. All right, because he's not going to turn down,
of course,
2-time Oscar winner Mahershala Ali to be in a movie from their studio. So he's like, and ever since then they've just been like, fuck, how do we make this movie? Like
Nick Pizzolatto's the guy who has the script, and I'm not saying he doesn't, but
well, they announced one director.
Right.
He leaves when filming's about to begin, when they're in scheduling and all that. Like it's pre-shoot, they're about to. Right. This guy leaves. I can't remember. No, that was the other guy. They announced Yann Damage is the new director. He directed White Boy Rick.
It's that guy.
A few episodes of Top Boy. And they announced a few weeks ago that Mia Goth is going to be in the film, and she's the star of X and Pearl. The A24 horror films. I haven't seen those, but this week it was announced that Pizzolatto is the writer of the film, and I'm like, so, and the rumors most of last year were like the script's bad. That's why they haven't been filming anyway. And that's why the director left, because he feels like he's going to get blamed for this movie that isn't even fully put together for him to execute at the top, which is the whole Marvel conundrum of they hire directors just to oversee what they have already mapped out. But this movie hasn't even been mapped out. They just have a star. That's it.
Right.
And the whole, like, can you do Blade PG-13, which has been the fans' biggest people with it. I know you probably might be one of those guys in terms of like, how do you make Blade work for, not because the MCU isn't kiddish, but it is more kid-centric than like
it's not Marvel, vampires
than what Marvel would be willing to go with Blade. Like, what do you think in your eyes is like the most grown-up thing the MCU has made?
The most grown up? Shit. I mean, I always feel like that was it the finale of WandaVision or the penalty. It may have been whatever episode. This is such a spoiler, but whatever episode where she was like getting transported back to being a kid and watching the movie.
That's the TV penultimate, shows.
Stuff like that. I think is probably some of the most adult in terms of like dealing with real world emotions. I mean, or if you want to look at like the end of Infinity War, stuff like that. But I think that's more me on like a gravity of situations, the immense situations,
the stakes of everything. In terms of like, I mean, I remember seeing Guardians and being shocked how like, oh, they're saying shit, and like that was the most like turned up where like And I know that's like language was like before they
No,
weren't
but I
really
mean
like
it's
that. There was a whole,
PG-13.
but the whole like a year later in Age of Ultron, there's the
They
whole
just
joke
cuss it.
about there's that whole joke where Captain America's like language.
But didn't what's the line that he has about Thanos' chin? You appear nuts on your face or something like
something
that.
like that, yeah.
It
But that's the
may,
thing. That's all Guardians. Yeah,
I was gonna say maybe Guardian, maybe James Gunn is a reason why. Well, I mean, realistically,
he is the reason when you see the Suicide Squad, it is like.
But he's like it's the gift and the curse because like he's the when Guardians hit. It not only showed people that B and C level characters could run the show, but it also shifted the tone of the MCU. There's a reason why the last couple Thor films are the way they are. You know what I mean? And Infinity War and Endgame and a lot of even the Spider-Man films, they have this certain level of snark. And I feel like a lot of that started from Guardians and the way their banter was, I don't want to say deprecating humor.
Yeah. Well,
to each other, not to themselves.
Well, that'll lead to the next topic in a way, but I was shocked that like thinking Nick Pizzolatto hasn't had a show other than True Detective on the air.
Right.
And he's kind of had this reputation of like the bad boy writer. Again, like
I've heard a lot
that image is from his own Instagram of like
and
the caption's like writing new scripts, and he like posted an image of like 4 scripts that have not been made. That was I think right before COVID when that image was taken. But like he's this guy who was like a teacher and then wrote True Detective, and then like HBO was like, you are our next Artur, like you will be our new our new David Milch, because he also idolized David Milch in a way because he was in the same boat of like professor turned writer. Dialogue is important. Story is what controls it.
But until what? Until you don't have because he's low key Vince Russo, right?
He's not even that because he was so mad that. Well, I mean, if you're saying even though he's kind of canceled right now, but Cary Fukunaga gets all the credit for season 1 of True Detective because of its direction, which pissed off Pizzolatto. But then when you watch season 2 and everyone's like, the direction is poor, and then you see how poor the writing is because you're not distracted by how good everything looks, which is
what are the best 2 parts about season 2 of True Detective?
Probably Colin Farrell just being
Colin Farrell is definitely the right answer.
That's it. It's only really good to watch him.
You don't like watching
McAdams? Vince Vaughn as the Kingpin was kind of interesting, but it just didn't fit.
His dialogue was shit. His story was shit. He's great. Yeah. And I wanted more for him. But once we got to the end and like I couldn't see the screen because it was all white, I'm like, what the hell am I talking? What's going on right now?
Yeah. If the story was more focused on a cop who's only dirty because he works for the Kingpin, who is like the guy who's trying to be the real mayor of the town, but isn't the mayor of the town, like that would have made more sense than like the female cop who's a badass but like lived in a cult, and then the sheriff, the biker sheriff who's a war vet dealing with his own sexuality. Like that's when Pizzolatto, again, like his ideas I think are just too much. Like for him to write Blade, what the fuck's he get? Like you said, it's vampires. Like, does he get what vampires are? Or is he gonna like? I don't think he's the guy who can do commercial projects. Like,
right.
So that's why I'm like, don't be shocked in 4 weeks when they announce he's left the project because he can't hack it in terms of like the constraints. And I mean, unless they, the whole point, I listened to something recently where the producer Nate Moore talked about the hiring process for the MCU, and they had said like we'll hire writers who know nothing about comics. It's almost better for them not to know, because then they'll come in with their own feelings about it.
Right.
But I feel like if you give this to Pizzolatto, he's gonna be like, what is this shit? Like, you mean you want me to write about the fucking vampire hunter who's a human as well? Like,
well, that's kind of, but I mean, this is kind of, damn, we're I mean, I know this isn't the show, but I do want to touch on the fact that Guardians is coming out this weekend. Well, I'm assuming we'll talk about it at some point in the near future. We're right on. We don't know what's happening. Like I'm assuming that there may have been one reference to Kang in one of those at some point in the film. I'm guessing it's not there anymore if it was there, but this is supposed to be the phase that makes up for the long slog that was phase 4. Kang is already a mystery. This movie is, the reviews already saying that
it's phenomenal. Yeah,
it's going to be one of the. They're talking about the Flash, which I guess we'll talk about that situation at some point.
I'll never talk about that. Just in terms of like, I don't want to see this movie, and for them to try to sell this movie with like,
they selling it. They're not trying. They're selling it.
No, I mean when Michael Keaton's a star of this movie.
It's a Batman movie.
Don't look over here.
It's a Batman movie. They're selling it.
Here's the star of the movie. We got old man Keaton being like, "You want to get nuts?"
No, well, because again, these movies are too good, but the residual effect is the question. But that's the thing with Guardians. Is like just like we said earlier, Guardians 1 kind of set the tone. This may low key be the end of the bookend situation, because right now, Guardians 1 arguably shifted the conversation, and now we're getting that film that seems to be one of the best Marvel films at the very least in the last 5 years from what the people are talking about. It's going to be very interesting to see not how, but if they can pivot. What'd you say?
Yeah. What you could tell from that first trailer when they dropped that trailer last year is like, they're back. They got it. Like, even though I do like Shang-Chi a lot and the multiverse.
Shang-Chi.
And they had good trailers too, but that Guardians trailer is like, again's like, it's been the same guy the whole time. That's why it worked.
It's James Gunn.
But the vision of these characters in these movies, like even for people who don't like Volume 2, I'm a big Volume 2 defender. I like Volume 2. Pretty good.
I like Volume 2. It was a good movie experience, a good theater experience as well. But I was going to say, that was a point we were making earlier. Marvel's not been one to chase hit makers. Like they want to
exact opposite.
There would, just like Shang-Chi's a great example. They want to get somebody who, not saying they're not a seasoned vet, but they may have some films underneath.
He was in his own field.
In his own field.
He's a small indie filmmaking,
but not for like this is for they like, because the same thing with Nia DaCosta. Like, she didn't have a lot of in the director's chair for a feature film time under. They're picking people based off of, just like with John Watts, they picked him because of that movie Cop Car, which is about two kids that steal a cop car and Kevin Bacon tries to get it back. Like, they liked the way that he wrote and directed little kids on screen, and they wanted to have that aspect be a part of their Spider-Man film. You feel what I'm saying? Like, they want to.
Yeah, no, I saw it because I ended up seeing Cop Car, because
Cop Car was ill.
Like, this is the guy who's making the Spider-Man movie, and it's like, yeah, that sense of dread that like these two kids being hunted by dirty cop Kevin Bacon are like,
if y'all haven't seen Cop Car, like I was gonna say, I'm not spoiling the movie at all. Like, that's the premise of the film. There's this dirty
and you can't oversell it. So they're like two kids. One's kind of more of a troublemaker than the other, and like they drive this cop car around, and then like it goes south from there.
Well, I guess you gotta preface it all by, I don't know what state it was in, but it's definitely Midwest. It's definitely like two white kids. Yeah. There's not a lot of it's not a city. They're definitely out in like the sticks. But it's the way that the kids, their interactions. Kevin Bacon, again, he's more phenomenal than he needs to be in a film of that size. I know, it's a really well done film. If you haven't seen Cop Car, shouts out to everybody who gets their recommendations from the nonsense that we be talking about all the time on here. I'm not into this Blade Nick Pizzolatto situation, but I don't want to overjudge it because
it's just an announcement at this point. Yeah,
it's so early.
This movie's still 2 years away. They can't make this movie in the next 9 months.
He may not be there by Christmas time. You really don't know what's going on. So
I don't think he'll. That's when this whole project is just doomed. Doomed. It's like, and that leads. And speaking of people who, again, came from the MCU system of like, what have you done prior? Nothing big. Citadel was released.
Yeah. Let's get back to this now.
Which we've talked about the last couple months because of its.
The Russo brothers.
don't have any substance to like anything they've done in terms like do you know that they have a podcast on their YouTube channel?
No, I'm not. I didn't know they had a YouTube channel, let alone a
podcast. Their Agbo Productions YouTube channel. They have a podcast on it.
Okay.
And
we'll follow it.
It's called Pizza Film School. And it's like them eating pizza and talking. Now this season, it's them talking to directors. I didn't watch the first season. I just found out about it. But during quarantine, they talked to writers about famous movies. Not in movies they didn't necessarily write, but like what made this movie good from a writer's perspective. They're trying to teach filmmaking to the new generation through podcasting. Like I watched the first episode.
Pizza Film School?
Yeah. It's them talking about the first movie they made that no one will ever see because the licensing of songs in the film. They didn't know like you couldn't have song like it's like the movie you can never be seen because you have to pay all these rights fees.
Zack Snyder's their first guest.
I watched 30 minutes of them talking to Zack Snyder, and then this week and it's two parts. It's two parts.
The first part's an hour.
Yeah, and this week they had Emerald Fennell, who wrote and directed "Promising Young Woman," a film I love a lot. So I'm interested to hear what their conversation of her. But in this first one, where they talk about their origins and all that, and they talk about how we got the MCU job and all that, and in this own podcast, they say like we like taking the piss out of things, like we like making fun of the genre that we're making, which explains the fucking Gray Man in terms of like you wanted to make a spy action movie, but you wanted to be like, isn't this shit fucking stupid, right? Like, because that's what they did, that's why it was like an object of my fascination. So because you could see they had the tools to make this movie, but they're also like, but what if we didn't make it so clean cut in terms of like how these movies are supposed to go? What if we made it more? And I'm like, no wonder Hollywood didn't come calling for you guys until Kevin Feige's like, listen, I need a guy in a chair to make sure this movie gets done.
They say, hey guys, hey, put down the pizza. I need you to direct this cat.
Basically.
And then they're like, all right, I got you. Don't worry.
Well, I mean, they directed Arrested Development and Community, multiple episodes of those shows. And they talk about how sitcom directing prepared them. And I'm like, still like those shows were so actor and writer driven because it's like everyone was perfectly casted on those shows. And those are two like the funniest shows of the last 20 years. So it's like
I've never watched
Community or Arrested Development.
Yes.
No. Okay. Well, when Arrested Development went to Netflix, I stopped. But those first 3 seasons are.
Oh, that's right. What was it? Netflix or? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Community went to Hulu.
No, Community went to Yahoo.
I had my Who's mixed up.
Yeah, they did that last.
It was their final season on Yahoo
TV.
What does that even mean? That was just the Yahoo website?
It's when Yahoo was trying to get into the streaming game. Like they had a whole basketball show. Yeah, with Baron Davis. They had some other things too.
I don't know what that is. I'm trying something trip. I'm sorry. I'm trying to see.
That's all right. But no, but watching these guys talk, and I sent you the quote from Joe Russo saying we'll have our own fully AI movie within the next 2 years, I imagine. I mean, like in the next 2 years, they'll announce a movie. And when you hear him talk, and these guys talk their whole process, it's like they want to be cutting edge and like be so far ahead of the game,
right? But
I'm like, but you're not even in the game you're playing in, because like
they on Netflix.
Yeah, like this movie they're making now, Electric State will be like, I think it'll be a flop like the Gray Man. And the thing they're doing is they're spending so much money. Cal, we talked about it before. Like Citadel, they had to add an extra $100 million to the $200 million because they had to reshoot the whole show. And when you watch these first 2 episodes, you can tell
that they had to put some more money on the screen.
No, because it almost looks like the money. They had no money. Like,
damn, really?
They have a lot of money for the first scene for the CGI train fight, which is okay. But then all the action is just like, because it's like, what you're doing? This show is a CW spy show.
I mean, it's Priyanka Chopra and my man's.
They got 2 semi-known people. And
Priyanka Chopra. What's the last thing Priyanka Chopra did?
Exactly.
Was it that show that got canceled on ABC? What was it?
Quantico. That was years ago. Because
was that it though?
No, because she was in the Matrix Revolutions for like 10 minutes. But
it was Quantico. She wrote that show was on her back.
She was the villain of Baywatch, the movie Baywatch. Don't forget, because that was Dwayne Johnson's whole branding marketing idea of like, I'll get this woman who's hot and rising to be the villain of my film. It'll be an unexpected turn. Fucking genius he is.
Sounds like Quantico was her last hit then, huh?
Yeah, but she hasn't done much since then. Richard Madden had I think a Golden Globe winning show, Bodyguard. After Game of Thrones, he was.
Is that still on Netflix?
No, that was that was just a 1-season show. That was just a limited series.
The first episode, if you don't keep watching Bodyguard after the first, like, not even the first episode, the opening to the first episode, you're tripping. The shit is so good.
I haven't seen it at all.
Dead ass. Watch the first episode. Watch the opening to the first episode. That shit is so good. I haven't finished it, but it's so good.
He was in Eternals, and then like it seems like he won't be in any more Eternals based on how that turned out.
I mean, hey, you never know if the check is right. It's got to be better than Citadel. Is he making bad decisions?
No, he's a guy like most of these guys in Hollywood who's like cursed by his good looks, and then he actually is talented enough.
He's got talent, yeah.
But it's the thing where like, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I don't want to do the things you want me to do.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be the action guy in the action thing. But like, that's him in this.
Yeah, but like right now, there isn't anything else.
Yeah.
You can't make money being fucking Bodyguard dude.
Well, like, I haven't seen it, but it came out last week on Apple TV, that movie Ghosted, which is basically in the same universe as Citadel, because I
heard that shit was ass. And the bits I saw it looked like it was ass.
I watched a scene that was released days before the movie was available, and then I listened to the big picture where they talk about it, and they're like, this is worse than you think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And again, that was a movie that was supposed to be like $150 million budget, and it's like, what do they spend them? And I'm like,
I don't know.
How much does CGI cost? Is that why they're overworking the people? Because they're like, because this shit's too expensive, so like we have to overwork you artists. Like,
but yeah, no facts. Because I mean, the movie looked dark. I don't know what was going on in that movie, but then they just say, hey, clean it up, add a horse, add some rockets, some fucking flickering fire from the flames from the fire, or whatever, and they're like, all right, that'll take 2 months because the render is going to take a week or two.
Yeah, because the only time like CGI has like looked the price is Avatar. Like when James Cameron's like, this movie cost $250 million to make, so it has to make at least $900 million to justify the cost.
How long did that movie take to render?
That's what I mean. But I'm like, at that point, why make the movie if it's all going to be rendering? And like, so that's where my problem with Avatar is like, it's a flawed concept in terms of like actors. No, fuck actors. We don't even need the actors or the sets. We can build it with this with this computer. We can.
That's how they do it. No, that's how Marvel's been doing it.
So with shows like this, where like we had to put Priyanka Chopra, Jonas, and Richard Madden on this train and have these quick cutting fight scenes because we don't fucking have Chad Stahelski at the helm to train them for 8 months so the scene is perfect. And that's what I mean. It's like it's a CW spy show because they say fuck and there's blood and all that, but like it's just as poorly acted as it, and the direction you can tell like they had to reshoot this, like because there's like.
It's a CW show with HBO money.
But it almost looks like, did you even have the money you're supposed to have? Maybe not in these first 2 episodes or after that first scene.
Where'd they put the money originally? Just in the cast? Like we're
and the whole thing is like this is supposed to spin off into 4 other shows.
Piss poor. It's got to be good first. And I feel like that's the conversation. Did we have this conversation? Slow down until the shit comes out.
It was about the MCU in terms of like they have to go back to the beginning, like write the scripts, get the actors, go make the movie. Which is the whole point of Blade. Don't get the actor. But this is all my problem. Like what I said a few weeks ago when we talked about the Russo brothers, once the trailer dropped and the Gray Man episode last year, I'm like, maybe these guys just weren't as good. And I think the whole time people are like, these guys aren't that good. They're just at the helm of the biggest franchises, meaning the Captain America films and then the Avengers, the last two. And I think they kind of know that as well, which is why 100%. They're trying to do all these different things to show that they're
more than that.
Or that they should have been those guys all along, but who knows? It's like because they made Cherry, and everyone who saw that was like, again, why did this movie cost so much to look the way it does? And again, like
because they got Superman and Apple TV would pay enough for it.
It doesn't make any sense. And just to watch,
Spider-Man, my fault.
And these 2 episodes I already told, because I had told you they announced season 2 before the show aired.
Yeah,
and this season's only 6 episodes.
Great.
And the 2 episodes are 40 minutes, Cal.
But wait, that's I was thinking about that too.
So I'm like, make it make sense. Like,
but you got it. Like
HBO told Game of Thrones, like, it's going to be 3 years until the show comes out because it's 9 or 10 episodes and it's 200 million.
But it's real. Like, think of an Amazon show or Hulu.
This is an Amazon show, Cal.
But I'm saying in terms of like how they release them, they'll do 2 to 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then they'll drop the rest. So you're thinking, oh, it's a 10-episode show, but really it's like a 7-week show. It's a 7-episode show. You're just watching the first 3 at once. The TV, there's no attention span. Everything is fucking. We got to get it out before the springtime or get it out before spring ends. Like they ain't worrying about shit. They weren't about making it good. Well, they're worried about making more.
Yeah, and that's why I got pissed when we talked about Swarm, where I'm like, why did you drop this all at once? Like, you could have dropped the first 2, but the only thing that people would have talked about with the first 2, like they did when it was all at once, was one scene with Damson Idris and Chloe Bailey. But it's like, there was so much more to the show that was interesting that, like, people haven't talked about since.
Right. I'm going to assume a lot of the people who were just talking about that either they didn't watch the show or they only watched that.
They never watched the show,
and they didn't get that deep into it. But
Fan watched the show after once he realized I think it was like all available. He's like, yeah, I'll continue watching this. I think I saw a few other people tweet about it too, but like no one watched that show from start to finish like we did. And I'm like, this is one of the best things that's out right now.
Yeah, no, I wanted to do something on it, but it felt like the people who were into it started watching like 3 weeks after it came out. Mm-hmm. Honestly,
but I guess that's also the smart thing. Like they'll have a sleeper hit in terms of rewatchability for people who will click on the tab, watch the trailer, and be like, "What the fuck is this?" And then watch the first episode and be like, "All these are available." I'll keep watching it. Like, which is the formula that you know.
Well, that's also Donald Glover. Like, I think Donald Glover's all if he could do it, he would drop the project and then never have to talk about it. Like he's just, like, I don't want to say be done with it, but like he's so
because he has that vibe. And like I've only seen snippets of like his thing with GQ a few weeks ago, but just like what the fuck's going on with him in a way, like with his creative mindset in terms of I want to do this, but I don't want to do that.
I mean, I need to go through that whole. I don't think I'm not sat through the whole article, but I remember the last big Donald Glover piece that came out right before was it season 2 of Atlanta, I believe. I got to understand. I just got to understand more of his brain, and he's definitely one of those guys who's like, all right, this is finished in my mind. I don't care if anybody's seen it or not yet, but I'm done with this, so I'm not even worried about that. I'm trying to, and when you mix that with someone, I don't want to say he has an ego, but like he's definitely someone who was talked about being the best and being the shit. He compared Atlanta to The Sopranos and nothing else. Like he feels very strongly about his stuff.
Well, that's you also wanting, and I don't mean you, but like you as the artist or the creative wanting to compare the work you're inspired by or what, you know.
No, facts.
And that's what the Russo brothers have said the whole time, where they had pissed people off by saying like The Winter Soldier is a political thriller, like 3 Days of the Condor, and people are like, this movie has Captain America in it, he's not taking down the government, but like, well, I mean, he's taking down Hydra, which is in the government, but it's like you're making, which gets into the like whole tour theory and like what's my film actually say.
No, right. And I know I imagine you're trying that, but like realistically, it's like they're probably it's more like they were watching a lot of these films, or they were influenced by a lot of these political thrillers with some action in it dialed up the action to a 10 and like had a loose storyline that kind of related to the stuff that they loved about these old films. And that's it. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
this
that's kind of how it goes.
Tries to be like it might take place in the real world, but it might not. Like it's because they like the CIA exists, but like they're above the CIA because they're unregulated. They're their own independent spy agency. But there was a weird trailer where they show like deep fake JFK and deep fake Winston Churchill talking about.
Oh, that's great.
And it's just like, but it's not in the show, or at least not yet. I mean, who knows? I mean, but the direction it was going.
Citadel.
Check it out. It's like you'll be like, again, read the Hollywood Reporter article about how much the show costs to make. Watch these 2 episodes and be like, no wonder it's a mess. And then there's still 4 more. They would have just been better off dropping it all at once because like I don't think this has the. You know what I mean? Like because this won't have the shelf life they think it will. Like this isn't going to be appointment viewing unless it's for people like me who are into it for the concept, but then also into it for like the creative messiness behind it of like, you mean to tell me like
he's not that type of star for people to just be trying to be that in tune every week.
And when you watch a trailer, like this isn't worth all my time, at least not to keep it on the regular, but let's move on to GosWatch before we get into our main topic of the show. So this week was CinemaCon.
Everything. There was trailers and footage for everything this week.
But that still hasn't been fully released. Just only reports. Like I read the description of Aquaman 2, which sounds pretty good.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
They showed the Willy Wonka trailer with Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
And then they released Dune 2 images.
Yes.
Look dope. I'm hyped for that. We'll be talking about that later in the year once that's out.
Gosh, here you go.
You didn't like the first Dune, I know. Or you don't. Well, you don't like anything by Denis Villeneuve.
No, what was the?
You only liked Arrival, I know, but you don't like Sicario or Blade Runner or Prisoners or.
Was there another Denis Villeneuve?
Oh, Enemy. You like Enemy, yeah.
Was it Enemy? Maybe. Anyway, keep going.
That's the one with 2 Jake Gyllenhaals. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The A24 John, right? No, that wasn't A24. I'm thinking of the Tom Hardy John. What was the name of?
That's Legend. Yeah.
Who put this?
No, Enemy is the one where 2 Jake Gyllenhaals, and Arrival is the one with Amy Adams. Yeah.
I'd be getting these director names confused. Anyway, keep going.
But Ryan Gosling had 2 films to talk about this week. He showed up first day with Barbie,
of course,
directed by Greta Gerwig, starring Margot Robbie, in which he is Ken. And then the next day, apparently there was a whole like stunt performer, I should say, a stunt performer exhibition put on before they talked about the Fall Guy, which isn't coming out till next year. But they said they had people riding dirt bikes on stage and dropping from the top of from the rafters and doing flips and all, because this is directed by David Leitch, who was a stunt performer himself. He had said so, and they brought Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt to talk about this movie and how it's going to, pay homage and respect to stunt performers in Hollywood, and kind of a brief synopsis because it was inspired by the Lee Majors TV show of the 80s.
Classic.
But yeah, again, the patron saint of white noise, Gosling, another week in which he just dominates the news cycle with his T-shirt and pink jacket.
You know what that means, though? That just means that I know we're not going to stop talking about this person.
Oh no! When I came back from my hiatus, what was the first thing we talked about? The Gray Man, and they announced. Like I said last week, we talked about the Gray Man too. Again, which movie are you more hyped for, Barbie or the Fall Guy?
Probably Barbie, only because it seems like it's going to be subversive. But I'll definitely be into the Fall Guy was something I watched as a kid. I remember I'm actually that's the thing. I was trying to find the intro to the show. I didn't remember if it was.
I watched it last week because it was it was a real song that Lee Majors sung himself.
That's
They clarified he won't be a bounty hunter like Lee Majors was in the show.
That was the fucking theme. It wasn't what I thought it was, but that was definitely a whole jam. But that was the 80s, man. You needed a song for your show to start, and it needed to be a minute or two.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling says he'll just be playing down and out stuntman who has to track down the star of Emily Blunt's movie that she's directing and they used to date, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing the star of the movie who's gone missing.
But are they going to redo the theme song?
Probably.
They have to.
I mean, if you see the set photos, they have like a more updated version of the truck that Lee Majors drove. Like Ryan Gosling is driving the new version of the truck.
They have to. He better be singing that shit and do.
He is. I think he is a singer in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, he singing, dance. He does all of that. The big Goss.
But yeah, they announced that John Cena will be playing a merman in Barbie, and Dua Lipa will be playing a mermaid. So.
I don't know if I don't want to see that movie.
Now you're out. Nah.
I know I'm more into it than the other one, but I don't want to see it. I would rather spoil me.
Okay, I'll be record right after I see Oppenheimer. We'll record because
that's right. Double feature day. Jesus.
All right, that was GosWatch again. Thank you to our patron saint. For giving us content to talk about. The man makes the news, Cal. Don't get mad that there's always something to talk about.
No, I understand. Trust me.
From Tag Heuer watches to movie announcements.
I get it.
You were the one who brought up the fucking.
I understand.
Him singing Jodeci at the Mickey Mouse Club. So that was your doing.
Trust me, I get it. He's been around forever. It's just
he was doing everything that.
Jesus. At a certain point, I don't need to keep seeing him, but. Do you think? Because you ain't gonna be able to do it forever.
You know the woman I'm with. She said she doesn't get why he's playing Ken. She's like, there could have been a better Ken choice, and I was like, how dare you say that to me? All people, you say that to me.
Yeah, Trip's gonna quit. What did she give any alternatives?
Yeah, she said Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth. I'm like, no.
I mean, Chris Evans would have made more sense than Chris Hemsworth, but who wants to keep seeing Chris Evans be a goof?
Well, Chris Evans was supposed to be the gray man, and then he's like, let me play the villain instead. I need to do something different. And that's why Ghosted, he doesn't play the action hero. He's the damsel in distress. Like they did the archetype switch. Like
he's going to keep playing against Captain America type until he can't do shit anymore. But
well, I don't know if this is someone playing their type, but Mercedes Moné, do you think she's still playing her type, or is she elevated to?
I think she's elevated. I think Mercedes.
This is going to be the cover too for this.
Yes, I picked that photo's hard. Mercedes feels like I said when I mentioned earlier about the I'm a star that's on Star Wars. That feels
that's kind of a bar.
It's a bar,
but and then I'm the star of stardom, and then
no facts.
I was the superstar in WWE.
The thing that I did not like most about her in WWE was her promos. Maybe it's like Roman Reigns. Maybe it's a situation, and I mean she's still getting there because I don't think she's 100% promo master. But I'm appreciating the fact that she feels like a full character that doesn't feel like Sasha Banks when we talk about her now.
It was one of those things. I watched her versus Bianca today. We can talk about that in a couple minutes. I didn't rewatch that in a long time, actually.
Right.
Still an amazing match.
100%.
But then I started watching her Stardom promos after only seeing the clips from online. I wanted to sit and actually watch them. And she reminds me a lot of Michael B. Jordan, where you might not be the best actor, but you have the talent and passion to do this. Because like Michael Jordan has the look to be an action star. He is perfect as Adonis Creed. He looked believable in Without Remorse. He can be that guy. But then we kind of see him in other stuff. I haven't seen Love Mercy, but what a lot of people said about Love Mercy is it's kind of weird to see him do a real role, a real everyday person type role. And with Mercedes Moné, you can see she also does kind of have that over the topness, which I think is intentional with her promo delivery.
Oh yeah.
Turning your body when you talk, like Michael B. Jordan. What made him so good as Killmonger, because he knows how to play a villain from watching anime. He's villains are sinister, villains are evil, villains are over the top. They're funny at the right times. They're dark at the right times, and like you can see her going back from Sasha Banks to this. Not like she's always kind of been that type. Like what she'll say will kind of be cringy, but like that's what someone like her in that role would say. Like
right. No,
like in this story, you are the bitchy heel, or
but I think that's the thing. It's like if that's your character and you're given trash material on one end, that suffering succotash messed up Roman Reigns for a lot of people when it came to promos. Now you don't even think about that stuff anymore just because it's real. That's what I'm saying. I don't think she's 100%, but I like the fact that it feels like she's much more advanced than she was the last time I saw her cutting promos in WWE. But
yeah. Well, and people are mocking her with like, oh, she's not that good outside of this, which we'll get into the hate as well, because like her doing the Mayu sucks on the guitar purse and just being like, this shit is whack. It's like her own freedom to do what she wants. And again, like, but like over there, that probably works as like the disrespectful heel. Like her thing is like, you women don't matter. You'll matter now because I'm here. Like that's what she's saying,
yeah.
By saying like she's the CEO. While she's also doing like the respectful, the show of respect after the match. Like I watched her versus Mayu yesterday. And like Mercedes said herself, like that was a hard hitting match. There were times in that match where like she super kicked the shit out of her, and like in the middle of that match, I'm like, is this what she wanted, or is she gonna be like, damn, I might need to go back because it's real out here. Like
we talked about on the show when she's left and come back, she's trained with luchadors and she was training in Japan. I think she's probably wanted something more aggressive. She was Hell in the Cells and the matches with Bailey and all that stuff. Like she was always on the bigger side of, where wrestling could go for individuals. I think maybe, this is, I would love to see her continue. I say I'd love to. She's at least through.
She will be continuing.
Yeah, she's at least through the next New Japan at the end of May. But I didn't realize people were saying that her matches, she wasn't as good when she's wrestling now.
Be honest. What do you think by what the 3 matches she's had? Do you see like, oh, you're it's like that thing, like you can be the star in college, but you can't be the star in the pros, like the level, because I don't see it like that. I think that first match with Kairi Sane was booked so different on purpose.
Right.
Like you put up the image of her and Jon Moxley that I sent. It was very similar to that first Jon Moxley match in New Japan. Like him and Juice have this hard hitting match all over the place, in and out of the ring. They use the table, all that. And like, they don't do that in Japan unless it's a special occasion. Kenny Omega was trying to bring that in and be like, no, we can do more than just wrestling. We can incorporate this stuff. He's like, wrestling can be everything.
Right.
And Jon Moxley show up and kind of like, again, new look, like she did, like switch it up, let me wrestle a kind of different style. She was a little bit more technical at first. And she had wrestled Kairi Sane. That was a perfect match for her to start, just like
great
Juice Robinson.
Match back. Just
like Juice Robinson was a perfect person for Moxley, a guy who's wrestled WWE style, who now wrestles Japan style.
Right.
So that way Jon Moxley will be able to get his footing in that first and not stand out. And again, like they did tables in that match, and like at the end she won, and she went 30 minutes. It was what she wanted. She wanted to have the main event match, even though it was stupid that they didn't make them the main event. They had to give us Tanahashi Okada for the 800th time.
Right.
When everyone came to Battle of the Valley to see her in the first place, like she said, like we sold out the show in 4 days. Like she sold it out. They came to see her. That was one of those real things. Like this show sold out because it's your first match back.
Because
like
it was her,
star making thing. But then the triple threat match, I think that's when people were saying she isn't as good as she thought she was. But that triple threat match is messy only in terms of like her versus either of them one-on-one would have been better.
Right.
Because in a triple threat match, they did a lot of those like spots where everyone's wrestling at the same time. One person's facing 2 people, then 2 people are facing 1, and they're all facing each other on their own.
She's never wrestled that type of match in Japan before.
No, but she did have the famous triple threat with Becky and Charlotte at I mean, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but
because I was gonna say, like, you know, how similar are those styles of matches? One in New Japan, or one in Japan, one in America.
Well, I mean, like, those are two women she's faced numerous times, so they know how to work a better triple threat together. Versus like her wrestling two women she's never faced before on the fly in a triple threat.
In her second match after being gone for about a year, yeah. I'm not saying I'm not trying to cake for
excuses. Yeah, it's not.
I'm not trying to cake.
Where, like, you
got to look at it.
Yeah, they had ideas for spots that like worked and didn't work. But it's like face one of these women, because the Mayu match was really good, and it shows like, no, she can do this, and like it was like her offense versus Mayu's offense was amazing. Like it was one of those things, like, she might not be, if she's not on the same level with them, she's just slightly below. And I don't even mean that as a diss to diss her, but like she had to compensate for a lot of poor women in WWE. Like, and I'm not trying to put those women down because they always try hard too, but like wrestling Dana Brooke and being better than Dana Brooke is hard. And having to hold back to face Carmella is hard. So when you are able to turn it up against the women of Stardom, you have to turn it up because those women don't hold back.
Yeah,
they're not told to hold back.
I just feel like the conversation is crazy. What women are better than Mercedes Moné right now in ring? Then
it would only be the women in Japan, I would think, and I think people were saying that the whole time, which is why she was dead set on like, I'm going to go over there and show I can be just as good. And I think by the end of the year, that'll be the case when she'll have 15 more matches, hopefully. I think that's the highest point she'll reach. I don't know if she'll do more than that this year total, but I forget who she's facing in the first round, and then hopefully we'll get the matchup of her and Willow, and that'll be an interesting case of her versus an agile powerhouse woman who can keep up with her and go the distance. Because I mean, she had to be the underdog to Nia Jax, but Nia Jax isn't Willow in terms of size and athleticism and all that.
Good point.
But do you think it is that thing? Because you don't want to cape for her, but I have been keeping for her the whole time because of that. Like, well, it's, if you leave the WWE,
yourself.
Well, if you leave, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey.
But if you leave, they tear you down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and like Cody Rhodes has done the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Rhodes left because he said, I'm better than this. Had to go and prove it. And if you kind of watch those early matches, like Cody Rhodes wasn't as good as Jay Lethal.
Facts.
Cody Rhodes wasn't as good as Eddie Edwards and Impact. Like, Cody Rhodes wasn't as good as these people he wanted to test himself in. Like, Cody Rhodes had to go to PWG to be in Bullock. He's like, that's how I'll earn people's respect. I'll put myself through their gauntlet of like, show me you're a good wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
When all he cared about was his star appeal. That's all he cared about. But then he did have the star appeal. Like, the guy from the WWE is coming to our, like, it's the Trinity thing. Like, this is a star coming over. Like, pay the proper respect and like acknowledge that this person is a star because where they were prior and where they're coming to. It might, because it's seen as a step down. But
coming back, you're saying, or leave the other company,
leaving the other company and coming to like Impact or coming to ROH.
But people got to realize though that this is the most important time in Naomi's life right now. Like, she'll
be able to show she can do it on her own.
But that's the key, right? Because over the last year. And I don't know what the specifics with Naomi's contract situation were. She wasn't able to. She didn't leave when Mercedes left, but I think it's true that they both said we're leaving the WWE. We don't like how we're being treated, and Mercedes was able to get into a situation beforehand. I think. Just the way that Sasha Banks operated, I'm not surprised that New Japan would take her over Trinity. I've been watching pro wrestling and black people wrestling in these federations for too long. Impact needs a star in their women's division. Mickie James wasn't the star. Deonna Purrazzo is dope, but she's not as big of a name, even though she's been on other people's TV. And Jordynne Grace is Jordynne Grace. Like, it's a very much if you know type division. Naomi, Trinity going down there with all of the juice and credibility she built as a SmackDown Women's Champion and all the other accolades as Naomi in the WWE should be able to have enough cachet for her to be that chick over there. And based off the tapings from this past weekend, it looks like there's some movement going on in some of those situations. But I just don't understand the mentality of like, instead of congratulating and trying to hold up what Trinity's doing specifically, people are going to tweet and have things to say, questioning why she's there, questioning the choice and all that. It just seems like really, silly energy.
Loyalty to the company is what it is. And that's been the argument with the tribalism debate of AEW versus WWE, and loyalty for whatever reason. And you can be, I'm not saying you can't be a fan of anything and a diehard fan at that, but to root for the downfall just strictly because they don't work there anymore and they said bad things about it, like the whole stuff this week with the lawsuit. And Dave Schilling had comments. I saw something where like he said it isn't the best place to work if you're a person of color or a woman or whatever, because it's just outdated and it's mindset and the way it's run. And, they're not open to things like they say they are, which again, if you've ever watched it or know anything about it, it's not shocking. And I'm not saying that to demean this lawsuit and what this woman is going through, but it's like, I do believe what she is saying based off the product that is put out and based off what people have said that have worked there and no longer work there. Right. And why do they no longer work there? Because like, of these situations. Yeah.
It's tough.
And the whole reason of them leaving, you can see now, like they made them tag team champions because like these are two great women who have nothing to do right now. And they had no plans to put them at the top of the card for the time being. So here's, the treading water title, which are these women's tag titles. And then once they're like, we don't have any challengers for Bianca Belair and Ronda Rousey. So, and then if you're like, which gets into the CM Punk idea of like, well, that is a problem, but that's not my problem because you're telling me to do something that I want to take very seriously now. And now you're telling me I shouldn't take it seriously. And then no one will ever take this serious ever again. And that's where the two are similar. They are two sides of the same coin in a way. Where like,
they've been there for so long too. Like they'd seen this happen before, both of them as champions and in the circuit. So yeah, I can only applaud them for that. And I think that the game needs to congratulate them. It's kind of, I don't think people realize how important this is right now, but I also think people need to realize that it's better for Trinity to do it on her own than trying to be next somebody in the CEO Mercedes Moné stable or whatever. If they want to link up in the future, they can. But let Trinity cook.
Oh yeah, I already said it'll be her. I know again, this is White Noise where we can be the dreamers we are and we can fantasy book. We won't get yelled at that over here. But I definitely see Multiverse United in August. Trinity versus Mercedes, champ versus champ. It'll happen because Mercedes Moné is in the New Japan Strong Women's Championship tournament. That's what that is. It's New Japan Strong is having a women's title. That's what it said at the top of the poster. When I saw it, I'm like, oh shit, it's not for a number one contendership or for the IWGP women's title.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah. And she could get that title back too.
She may face Willow.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
And I definitely see within the next 2 months that Trinity will be Impact champion. Like you said, it'll be a bigger thing to have her as champion because Deonna Purrazzo was in WWE and then she left. Well, she was cut, I should say. I shouldn't put that on her. That shit. But like she showed up on TV, had 2 or 3 matches, and then she got released because of COVID. Mickie James, like I said, was a star at a different time. So her always coming back and lingering around didn't really help as much because it's like, well, it's Mickie James at the end of her career. It's like the Undertaker coming back, Shawn Michaels coming back. We don't want to see
Goldberg.
People think that's the better one, Goldberg, yeah. But you see it now. They were justified in leaving because they never cared about those tag titles. They went vacant for 4 months almost, and then when they had the best tag team to put the titles on, they didn't give them the titles until the week after because they wanted to swerve the fans by it being too obvious that like this should be the tag team, right? Well, that's too obvious. We should have them lose to Ali and Raquel just to win them back. And the whole time they were champs, they were like, now who's going to face these women? Because we have nothing lined up. And you see, like, still, like, they gave them to Becky Lynch and Lita for this story.
And Trish Stratus lost him.
And then Trish, who's not even in the tag team, because she just take the spot and defend it for the swerve that they had planned. The whole thing is just, so anyone who wants to say, oh, fuck them for leaving the way they did, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this company shows they don't care. Friday, I'm sorry. They drafted Alba Fire and Isla Dawn to SmackDown. They are the NXT Women's Champions. Then they drafted Indy Hartwell to Raw. She's the NXT Women's Champion. Like, which shows like they don't care about what happens in NXT still. Like, NXT is more meaningless now than it ever was with those two decisions, because it shows like these women are gonna have to drop these titles, obviously, because it's like, what's the point?
The next NXT show is at the end of May.
No, they'll just have to drop them on like NXT proper, probably. Like,
that's silly.
But the whole point, like, they drafted Indy Hartwell, who's injured, which is like at Cody.
No, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Shout out to him. He's like, you draft someone with the big ass boot on their foot, like that's your draft pick of like.
They said worry about it in 6 months.
We had this conversation in our glide about people who care about women's wrestling, and then the people who say they do and actually don't. And Sasha Banks made me care about women's wrestling because growing up was the ruthless aggression era in which the women weren't good wrestlers, and when they did, it was only bra and panties, which is appealing to see as a young man growing up. But like in the merits of like wrestling,
right?
There's nothing to it.
Right.
So 2015 with her and Bayley at Takeover Brooklyn, and then the rest of the four horsewomen, like she's the star of this group, and you like their best matches are with her, not with the other ones that you can make. Wouldn't you agree? Like,
not fact.
Bayley Sasha is better than Bayley Charlotte, or Bayley Becky is better than Bayley versus Charlotte Becky. Like it plays out where like there's always one constant, and it's her.
Always.
Like,
she's the pinnacle of the women's division in general. In WWE, anywhere where she's at, she's a difference maker. I actually always feel bad. She made Ronda Rousey look so great at that one Royal Rumble, and then you didn't see her again.
I almost was going to put that image up because it's like you want to see the obvious case of like how much this woman is a star. Watch her versus Ronda Rousey, then watch every other Ronda Rousey match.
It's a different match.
And that's where I can understand like maybe her and Stardom is different because she's not asked to carry the women; she's asked to hang with them,
right?
And maybe she's not used to hanging with them as much because like the only women she would have to hang with are Asuka, Kairi Sane. Her and Io Shirai only had one match, which was a shame. And I know I'm only referencing the women who had Japan, but like the four horsemen grew up together, so like they didn't have to hang with each other,
right?
Like I mean, in terms of like one didn't have to carry that, like they could hang with each other, but it was like, but she was the better matchup for each of the other three.
Facts.
And it showed it like from Hell in a Cell to Takeover to WrestleMania, like they were doing on the biggest stages. And then when she gets the biggest stage, a WrestleMania main event, she gives Bianca Belair the best match she ever had till that point. And I don't want to say since then because her and Asuka was good, but I would say it's still better. And Bianca Belair is, you know, she was a great wrestler then, is a better wrestler now. That's why the rematch needed to happen and still needs to happen.
Right.
And there is that whole argument of, and all right, she was wrong for backing out of the SummerSlam match.
Yeah, of course. But
it's wrestling. How many times have we heard someone not wanting to do the job and pulling some fuck shit and leaving, or arguing and something else has to change? What like it's because in her eyes, I can see it. Like she's like, I lost the match the first time. Shouldn't I win this match this time to keep the feud going? If I lose again, that shows I'm weak and can beat everyone else, but I can't be this, which was the CM Punk mindset. And if you always listen, like I do, always listen to the Art of Wrestling podcast, CM Punk would say like, it doesn't matter if I beat Chris Jericho again. What matters is if I beat The Undertaker. He's like, I know I shouldn't beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania, but like the idea of like, I can always beat this guy and then not this guy doesn't look good when people show up just to watch one guy, meaning Brock Lesnar or The Undertaker, John Cena, and they don't want to watch the rest. They won't watch the rest of the week because it's not a big show where I'm beating the guys I'm supposed to beat. And he said, like, my stock dies in the eyes of the casual fan.
Well, I'll say this is why we can't be too harsh on people doing flippy stuff, because at a certain point, there's somebody's parent who paid for that little kid to go to that show to see that person do that one move. Like these types of conversations put a lot of that stuff into perspective for me when I think about what's going on and why a wrestler does what they do in front of a live crowd. But
that's what I was trying to say. Well, I think I did say it with Will Ospreay was I don't get mad at Will Ospreay's mindset is I have to go out and give it my all. And if that scares Dave Meltzer because I do a move and land a certain way and Dave Meltzer doesn't want to see anyone get injured, even though he kind of does because he's like, well, that gives him a little bit extra star.
Yep.
But Real Ospreay's like, he thinks with that mindset, like whether it's the show in Britain, which doesn't do the audience like the shows in Japan, or if it's AEW, he's like, I don't make it to the States as often as I did before, but you're going to get 100% Will Ospreay every time out. You don't get Will Ospreay at half speed maybe it's that little bit of like, in my mind, that's wasting my time going at the half speed and not giving the people what they expect from me. Admit you set the bar of what they should expect from you, which is like the idea, like, is the Miz a good wrestler? Well, the Miz always showed like, I'm going to wrestle my way. And then there'd be times where he would turn it up to be like, oh, he can do a little bit more when he wants to prove it. Yeah. But you won't always get that is the thing. And that's a whole nother argument in itself. But Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks always made sure like Carmella had the best match of her. Mm-hmm. Alexa Bliss had the best match of her, or whoever it would be. And I think people knew that. And I think they got angry when a torch basically was passed that night in Tampa from Sasha to Bianca. And maybe that did upset her. And I can understand it because John Cena of the women's division has now shown its face. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to go away anytime soon.
No, that makes sense. Damn. We'll see. We shall see. What are you thinking about for Trinity?
Well, think about it like this. Like, this is almost a year apart. Mm-hmm. Like, then versus now in a way. Like, we all would have been happy seeing them as tag champs and like carry these mixed match group of women that they were forced to face, whether it be Carmella, Zelina, or actually Rhea. I mean, Rhea and Liv was the best tag team other than them of like two women paired together with similar gimmicks.
Agreed.
But then they broke them up right after that match, so they were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, it was really dumb.
But I do think what Mercedes is doing now, I think Trinity will be doing something similar.
Right.
The only thing that doesn't help her as much is like Mercedes, like you said, is on The Mandalorian. Put that image up. Like, she is a star, a guest star of a big time TV show.
What's up, Mercedes?
And again, she's with Rosario Dawson. Like, she's, and she's been at these movie premieres, and that's because she has the access by being a member of the Walt Disney Corporation.
She's a star on Star Wars. I mean, that these are all actual facts.
Yeah.
Look at that clout, man. Turn CM Punk and it's everybody else.
I mean, does she still milk the Snoop Dogg stuff? That's her cousin. If you got a famous relative, you have to.
You got to roll up a big one because we go to my cousin's house.
That was a little corny, but I'm like, why is she hanging with Mojo Rawley so much? Like, what's like? I'm almost like, what's going on with them? Like,
they're getting lit. I'm convinced that she getting hot. She got a whole. They got a whole brand of CBD stuff.
That's why she's a CEO. She's the CEO of their cannabis company. Yeah.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is she getting high. Maybe. Yeah. Roll up a big one. She can say it.
I do think Trinity will be able to succeed on her own. And it was better. I had said this to someone. I'm like, she goes to AEW. The automatic, she gets lost in the shuffle argument surfaces no matter what.
Right.
No matter what. That the haters, the fans of her would all say it, that she shows up, and because like we had this argument a little bit, like, what are they going to start her into? Is she going to face Jade and then lose? Because they did that to Athena, and that's what fucked Athena. Like, because if she would have beaten Jade, the argument that we had, you can watch that section cut out on the YouTube.
Should I say everybody commenting on that too?
That would have made Athena, and that also could have maybe made Jade, because it's like, now the Russians cut.
Right.
She's not a machine. She's a woman. Like, someone can beat this woman. So when she wins again and then goes back on the cycle. It's like, oh, when you are the one person to beat this woman, that does matter.
Oh, she really is her.
So Trinity, obviously, like I said, there are other great women wrestlers in Impact. That's the whole thing. Like, dude, they have this quietly stacked women's division with Masha Slamovich, I think, is there as well. Perazo, Jordan Grace. So, like, she'll be able to, much like Mercedes is showing that she can hang with the women of Japan who are on the top 10 of best women's wrestlers in the world. It'll help that Trinity's like, well, these are the best women wrestlers in America that aren't with the other two mainstream American companies. So she'll get her own version of being the CEO of a women's division and she'll be the star of the Impact Women's Division, right? Like that's
I mean, we'll see. They did this taping. Well, they did 2 nights of tapings, and she already had a match. But it looks like from some of the other photos, like they have plans for where they think she should be headed at a certain point, at least based off of what I'm seeing. So I'm excited for her. I need to figure out. I still haven't done. I need to figure out how to watch Impact at my house. If I have to change the way I get to watch live TV, I may have to do just that because we all need to be getting behind what Naomi's got going on right now. Just saying.
Yeah, and you can see that they're, again, rooting for each other, and who knows if that's for the ulterior motives that people think one has of saving face by showing, oh, this person and I are friends. But if you watch that documentary she did when she showed up at Wrestle Kingdom, like, she got on the flight to Japan to go support her. Like, all these people got to support her, and I think she's doing the same thing. Like, by her not going back, Trinity not going back, even though there were reports that she could have and they didn't want her or vice versa. Like, my whole thing the whole time was like, if your husband is part of the biggest star faction,
right,
you can have, like, you mean he can't put in the good word to bring you back and clear the air?
Exactly.
And everyone's saying, like, no, like that, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, you.
Well, looks
like it to me.
The other thing with that conversation that kills me is, and I don't know how much of this is because anybody could say anything, but the first interview she talked about with it was a NBC affiliate. She was basically like, "Hey, this was the right time. Like, I've been making a lot of changes and decisions in my life, and this is the best decision for me right now." Like, I think Trinity's very cognizant of what's going on right now, at least from what I see. She ain't been wrestling for a year. She's down somewhere where she's going to get a lot more freedom than normal. I think we're about to have a really nice summer with Trinity down there on whatever path they're building towards. I just want to make sure that people aren't messing it up.
Yeah, and if people want to have the freedom to do whatever, again, that's why we have the Cody we have now. As much as I hate it, it's because he got the freedom to test stuff out and create the American Nightmare, and that's because he went on the Indies, he went to Ring of Honor, he did all this stuff, and he put together the character. I remember there was that Being the Elite episode where, like, him and Brandy are at, like, this winter cabin place, and he has a portrait of himself with the Intercontinental title. His hair just became blonde, and he's, like, smoking a cigar. And I remember Dave Meltzer vividly being like, he looks like a star now. Like, he looks like a big deal based off this YouTube show. Like, that's, and, like, when they did all the other stuff, like him leading the mob outside of SmackDown with the megaphone, and, like, John Moxley did the same thing when he put out those vignettes to hype up, like, will this guy be at Double or Nothing? And then we showed up at Double or Nothing and threw Kenny Omega off the fucking casino chips. He's like, I'm a star now. Like, I'm the star I knew I should have been. Right. And she did that when she showed up at Wrestle Kingdom with the fit and, like, every press conference with the look she's had. And again, what's funny is, like, me seeing these guys that I follow who I do kind of like, but then, like, they shit on her the past 9 months. And then they'd be like, damn, this woman looks good. I'm like, yeah, but you've just been an asshole for criticizing the woman, but just looking at her like an object. Like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Because now she has the freedom to dress this way, to, like, cut promos this way. Like, she showed up, and she's also kind of doing the Chris Jericho shit. She showed up after the match, beat her ass. She beat her ass at the press conference when she just fucking threw her on the table. Like, they're not letting her do that they weren't letting her do that at WWE because it was a system in which, and I'm not saying to be like, and they'll be able to, like, it was Charlotte Flair and then one other woman at the top. in their mind, only Charlotte Flair and one other woman can be at the top, and like the second spot would always flip flop between. Well, now it's Naomi, now it's Ronda Rousey, now it's Bayley, now it's Sasha Banks. Like it would constantly flip, and then when it became Bianca Belair, it was like they were dead set on here are our two women. These other ones don't matter, because the whole point of Nikki ASH winning the Money in the Bank was like, all right, how much longer until Charlotte gets this title back? Right. And like clockwork, it happened.
Damn.
So, I mean, I've been rooting for her, but I rooted for CM Punk when he was leaving and talking this shit. I guess that says a lot about me. Is like, if I root for the people who feel like they're misused and go out and prove their worth, am I like that internally? I think I am. I think, you sent something earlier, a comment that someone said, I'm like, that's the story of BRP. Like, you should have more than what you get. It's like
it'd be nice, yeah. Now, shouts out to everybody watching. Shouts to everybody boosting the signal. But yeah, it'd be nice to be getting what many feel you deserve.
And that you know what you have to go out and prove it. She's going out and proving it.
Exactly.
And whether it's to people who already knew it or to people who, again, were doubters from the start.
Right.
Or who turned into doubters because she left one place and you should never leave that place no matter what.
Silly.
Thing like, did CM Punk prove it by going to the UFC? No, that was the worst thing.
No,
that's the one time where you can never. But he said he wanted to have a real fight, and he had
he got a fight already. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think CM Punk's clout level is a crazy, so it puts a lot of his decisions in different perspective for people. But when you talk about somebody dancing outside of the WWE, he's done a lot, but he hasn't done a lot of
who did the same thing stuff. And who they love? Who? Fucking Brock Lesnar did it.
Yeah.
And didn't people love it when Brock Lesnar came back? They hated when he was
him
for
being
6
champion,
months as champion, but I mean, they still love him now.
But
Brock Lesnar said, "Fuck this! I don't need this." Made himself a big star, and then they're like, he's like, guess what? I'll show up to work 8 times a year for $8 million, and they're like, "Oh, of course, sir." Yeah.
What do I sign?
And
yeah.
I've said this the whole time. She'll be back sometime next year, and she'll get what Roman Reigns has right now. She'll get the same treatment, because Charlotte Flair is kind of almost doing something similar. At least she's had health stuff to do it. But Charlotte Flair has been off and on TV, still being champion for a few months. Again, Charlotte Flair earned that by being a workhorse as well.
Did they say on Friday that Bianca's a SmackDown champion?
But Bianca's John Cena. That's the no days off role with Bianca.
But they're switching those titles though.
Yeah. Oh, you mean her and Rhea do the bullshit?
No, that's what's happening. After they mentioned Bianca getting switched, Bianca cut because I think her and Dakota Kai posted photos being outside the Eiffel Tower. I think they're in Europe right now, and she cut a whole promo in her hotel talking about being your SmackDown Women's Champion on the show.
Yeah, the stupidest thing. I hope we talk about how dumb this draft has been on Thursday on Black Wrestling.
I think we're gonna have to, yeah.
Because drafting Damage Control to SmackDown, like, she's gonna have to face the same women she's already facing. Yeah. Like, that's not. That's not how the game is played.
I think with a lot of it seemed like they were trying to draft brown people on the SmackDown again.
What worked is that Raw now has Cody, Gunter, and Drew. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
You have 3 different matchups you can make now.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like they're going to bring over the fucking Brawling Brutes to Raw. Be like, oh, fuck.
But no, they have to. They're his friends. Yeah, that's what they're going to say. And then the Viking Raiders are going to go over there. It'll be a whole. What they should do is do like what other shows do. Where, all right, we're going to. You may not see tag team wrestling on Raw, but all the tag team wrestling is going to be on the SmackDown show, and that's where that's going to reside. And you're going to get a certain type of like. I would love for them to book the shows differently, or just add different things that you can't see on the other show, aside from the personalities vying for the belts. But I don't know. It's a lot to ask.
Yeah. So shout out to Mercedes. Man, Moné.
Yeah, piece of Mercedes. Moné.
And Trinity as well. Again, like,
salute to Trinity for actually. Again, I like seeing how much people are supporting Trinity. I just want to make sure that people are not shooting her run in the foot before it even really gets going. Let her cook.
But think about that image. That's a year apart. Like, she won that title at WrestleMania, and I bet she never thought she'd be women's champion in Japan. Like, that's awesome. Like,
right.
It's one of those things are like, again, people, and she, anytime you ever talk, like she respected the women in Japan. Like that's why she wanted to go over there and train, and like, and she's doing it.
I'm with it, Trip.
So that was this week's White Noise. Next week we might have a very special guest. Don't know what we'll be talking about, but there'll be plenty to talk about over the course of 7 days.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. See.
Maybe a little bit of Guardians. I'll probably be seeing Guardians on a.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk Guardians
on Saturday. Yeah,
I'm seeing it Saturday as well. So I'm actually, I may be seeing it before Saturday too.
Oh shit! Roderick Strong came back. Well, no, I mean not came back. He made a comeback, but not in the company I thought he would. Roderick Strong
he's all elite, right?
He is all elite. We are 3/4 of quiet release is probably what they just probably let his contract expire and we're like, fuck it.
And because the rest of the UA is broken, they had to get the other one in there. Or?
Yeah. Well, if they're not. Kyle O'Reilly is recovering from his injury. Bobby Fish is 85 years old.
Broken.
The boys are almost. But the boys and Bobby Fish are almost back together. Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, they're all elite. Maybe they can bring back Bobby Fish if they're bringing back CM Punk. They can bring back Bobby Fish.
Yeah, they got
because Bobby Fish was the one saying he could whoop CM Punk's ass and he was an asshole and all that.
On my AEW collision, I want all the smoke, and I will say this.
Oh, you know what? I was so pissed that I didn't draft Kyle O'Reilly when we finished. I looked at the roster and I was like, I saw him earlier. I'm like, let me wait till the last pick. I'm like, I can't draft him now because he's injured. But when I saw him, like, why did I take fucking
no opposition for me? But no, shouts out to the people that checked it out and said that we should be running wrestling promotions. I thought that was dope.
But running them together while being opposed, or like we should just be running a promotion.
Like you would have to be running Dynamite, and I would be running AEW Dark.
That's what I mean. Like we're under one umbrella running shows. Yeah. Not like you have a promotion and I have a promotion.
No, yeah, I think we would need to be properly working in unison to feed the system. But no, yeah, if you did check it out, our AEW mock draft. It's the last episode, but this was fun as well.
Check out the archives in the past. We've talked about Carmelo Hayes, who retained his title and got fucking speared through the wall.
Yeah. Did you see YouTube now has, like, if you have stuff in playlists, they turn them into podcasts. So White Noise technically has a podcast on the youtube.com/Black Wrestling page. We need to get I need to properly set it up, but because they kind of they rolled it out and then they kind of just did it. So like White Noise, something else.
Season 2 just wrapped up. Make sure you check that.
The live is up on the YouTube as well. You can watch it after this whenever you watch it. And BRP, like they're like fake ass podcasts on YouTube. But shouts to YouTube for doing that. If you're not subscribed to us here on youtube.com/Black Wrestling, or paying the $1 or paying the $10 on the patreon.com/Black Wrestling. At least subscribe and like some of these posts if you see them. That helps us out a lot from what I'm told.
Again, thank you all for watching. Whether you watch it live on the Patreon once it drops or the replay on YouTube, we appreciate it. Kyle, where can the people find you on social media?
At Cal on Twitter, at CalDub on IG. That's it. At Black Wrestling, wherever you get your social media. That's the other one.
You can follow me. You can follow me on Twitter at Davis, aka Drip. Instagram, Davis Colton DC. Black Wrestling every Thursday, live on YouTube, 8:35. Mimi, myself, Cal, Fam, and Dame Time himself, Math, giving y'all the best content in wrestling.
Sheesh.
The comments say it itself. Make sure you join us. Like, subscribe, all that. Patreon, pay the $1, pay the $10. Extra content like Black Watch, Bulls in the China Shop is there as well. Shout out to Tony Brown, Vin, and Semp. And make sure Black Wrestling on Twitter.
Yeah, even though Twitter overlords are trying to kill their own program. That was great. Jay White, take us out.